I know it's a little late into January, but how was your holiday?
It was solid. I mean, unfortunately, I was very ill um for the holidays. I caught COVID. So,
Oh
yeah,
no,
it's
COVID.
I think though it was one of those things I going into the holidays, I'd been teaching 9 classes between 2 colleges, doing stand up and running a comedy club. So I think my body was just, you know what I mean? Like it's just like you need to rest. So it just left me open to whatever thing. And I was
Yeah,
knocked out for a week. And I frankly am grateful for it. So
it was a little reality check.
yeah, kind of. Yeah, kind of. But otherwise decent. Do you have a nice holiday?
I did. I spent some time with my family and went home to Smithville for a while and hung out, and it was all good. So you're a comedian. You're a
Yes.
funny man.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Well, I have prepared some jokes for you.
oh, sweet. Cool. I love jokes.
All right. Are you ready? I don't know if you're like emotionally prepared because they are so funny. So,
Okay.
okay. All right. You ready?
Sure.
Why couldn't the blind girl eat oysters?
I don't know.
Because she couldn't see food.
Ah, okay. That's a
Bam.
good one.
All
I
right. All
love
right. All right.
puns, so we're in the right realm.
All right. What do you call a blind fascist?
I don't know.
A Nazi.
Ah,
I've literally been laughing at these jokes for like 3 days. So,
that's hilarious. I love it. A not see. Okay. That's
well,
cool.
hello, everybody. My name is Jay Walker, and welcome to Blind Dates. I am here with my wonderful guest, Mr. Sean Shank.
Hello.
So, Sean, you're a comedian, you're a professor, you run a
Mhm.
comedy club. Can you tell me a little bit about that? What's your story?
Well, okay, so I mean, there's a lot to it, and try to pull all these strings into an aggregation that makes sense might take a minute. But essentially, growing up, I had a ton of interests, and my parents were always so encouraging. They never said no. So anything I would endeavor to do, the only like kind of rule that I had is that I had to finish what I started, whether it was a football season or whatever it was. And I initially started out, for as far as like my academic career in pre-med, and then finished in with I got a undergrad in English and creative writing, and then I went to Johns Hopkins and I got a degree in writing and teaching writing. And I'm currently actually in getting my PhD in general psychology.
Okay.
Yeah. And as far as comedy, I started many years ago when the internet was just all cornfields, and you
Just all
know
cornfield.
yeah, it's well, you see, whenever old guys talk about anything, it's like this all used to be cornfields, you know.
Back in my day.
Yes, exactly. And I started in comedy because I always knew I was funnier than the class clown, and yeah,
So you
it's
weren't the class clown, you were above him.
no, 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 no. I was a quiet, introverted kid
No
who,
way.
yeah, oh, totally. I actually tried to. Here's the thing. I am in any personality test I've ever taken, I'm split right down the middle. I'm expressive analytic. So that makes sense for my academic side, but for everything else, the expressive fits, right?
Mhm.
And the expressive side was always trying to come out. So, I was in choir, I was in jazz choir. I had on the sequin gloves with the, jazz hands.
I can see it. I
Yeah,
imagine it.
right. And but I was also in drama and things in school, and I played football and I wrestled and I did all of the things. But when it came to interpersonal connection, I was absolute. Uh, am I allowed to cuss at all on this
Oh,
case, or is it
this is
PG?
my podcast.
Okay.
Yes, you can.
Okay, I was absolute shit when it comes to that stuff. And I mean, frankly, it's taken me years of talking with people and learning, how to properly communicate, making small talk. My God, what a nightmare that is, figuring that out, with humans.
Yeah.
So yeah. So
You're like
yeah,
a socially awkward Troy Bolton.
I don't know who Troy Bolton is, but
Oh my God! I'm
socially
turning the
awkward.
interview off. I'm done. You never seen High School Musical?
No, I haven't. I'm
Oh my
sorry, I have
God.
not. Shame on me, obviously. Well, I know this
Gotta
is a
get
huge
on
pop
that.
culture thing. Yeah, well, I mean, comics, frankly, we are students of society and we have to kind of have our finger on the pulse of a lot of things. And I know that was massively popular, but it never kind of came across my vision path at any time.
I understand. Yeah,
So
it was a very specific, very specific crowd of 8 to 17-year-olds 20 years ago.
yeah, and it was 20 years ago, back when it was all cornfields.
When it was all girl for you.
And then we had a High School Musical came out of yeah, no, I know it's a thing, but it just I don't know, it's certain things caught my attention when it came to cinema, and I have a very eclectic taste, from Shawshank Redemption to Mean Girls to Water for Chocolate. It just depends
Oh.
on what kind of snags me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but regardless, yeah, so yeah, that's I got into stand up, and I did some shows with Def Jam, I was on CBS and some other things. You saw me for like a half of a brief second on America's Got Talent.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah, it's like I said, a half of a brief second. But I will tell you my journey in stand up, because of a bad first marriage and a bunch of different things, has been a lot longer than some of my peers that started when I did. But the thing is, I've been coming into my own, and I've traveled outside the country for stand up. I'm headlining clubs around the country now. And part of it is that I've learned that it's not about me and my mission to like prove myself like it used to be. Now it's more, it's about the people that I'm talking to on stage and like bringing them some joy, even if it's for a short amount of time. So yeah, yeah. So there's the academics, there's oh, and I teach at two college. Yeah, I teach at SNHU and Lake Michigan College, English and creative writing for both. And I love it because I don't teach like a traditional professor. I actually try to deprogram the kids, you know, from what society has jammed down their throats. And that
Mm-hmm.
that is always exciting for me.
So you said you had a lot of hobbies when you were growing up. What kind of put you onto comedy, I guess? Why comedy over, say, being an astronaut or something like that?
Well, I wouldn't be an astronaut because we never actually went to the moon. Oh,
See,
here we
thank
go.
you, finally.
Oh, you could get into so much evidence.
That's a whole new podcast.
Oh my God, yeah. Okay, so I could never do anything like being an astronaut or a pilot. And I actually wanted to. I wanted to get into the Navy to be a pilot, but I was born legally blind. Um, and because my eyesight was like 20 over 1,000 in each eye, I've had 6 surgeries. Nowhere near like, being, fully blind, but
Mm-hmm.
my eyes have been a trembling cup for the entirety of my life and have like kept me out of certain activities, so to speak.
I definitely feel that.
um, yeah, yeah. And I want to be sensitive to you, so don't want to go into the depths of it. If you want to talk about it, totally cool. If not, I'll move on.
We can talk about it. I'm an open book.
Okay. So, but yeah, I mean, like even now, I have to have surgeries and things. I'm getting some
Mhm.
eye injections in a couple weeks.
Oh gosh,
Yeah,
that's a
yeah,
thing.
that's a thing. I get needles in the eye quite often.
Oh my God.
Yep, yeah, I'm going to be doing that for. I think I should be done with everything probably around summertime. But yeah, I'm getting needles in the eye because they've got to reduce swelling and I'm bleeding, inside of my eyes. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that's going on and them taking the goop out and replacing it, that
Mhm.
kind of stuff. Um, and the cool thing is I have to be awake for all of it. I haven't
Oh,
yet,
oh,
okay, been put out for anything. And like I've had to watch them stick like the scalpels in my eyes and all that stuff. It's been
oh.
nutty. Yeah, it's crazy. I'm sorry if I'm making you cringe over there. You look like you're
No, it's okay. I'm just like, I cannot believe because so when I first went blind, I had severe swelling and I had severe pressure behind my eyes. The average temperature that you're supposed to have in your eyes is 12 to 24. Mine was at 84.
holy shit.
Yeah, they were falling out of their sockets. They were literally at my cheeks. So they had to use
God.
like they had to scalpel my eyes open and stuff like that. So I understand where you're coming from, like watching it happen and just being like,
I am
oh
so
gosh.
wow. So may I ask, when did it happen for you? Like how long has this been a thing for you?
My 5 year anniversary was December 12th.
Okay,
Um, I went blind December 12th, 2018, and I was having actually severe like GI symptoms, so nothing related to the eyes. And 3 weeks later, I went into the hospital for the GI symptoms, and I started to swell rapidly in my mucous membranes, including my eyes,
right.
and um, the swelling got really bad, and it cut off circulation to my optic nerves.
That I didn't even know that was a thing.
Mhm. It wasn't a thing before me, actually.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
You're the first?
I'm actually technically considered a medical mystery. I don't have a technical diagnosis for my disease. They believe me to be like um patient zero for a new inflammatory disease, basically.
Okay, so you'll have to forgive me on this, because in a previous life, when I first went to school at Purdue, I wasn't looking to get into English and writing and things like that. It was always a passion for me. I actually was there, I was in general health sciences. I wanted to be a doctor because medicine's always fascinated me. I've been an EMT, I've been a nephrology
Oh my God.
technician, I was working in a medical bus on the front lines during the pandemic. Um, so, you know, as I mean, that's fascinating, and I hope that doesn't seem insensitive to you.
No.
How does that feel to you to be literally like ground zero for a thing where they're just like, bro, we have no idea.
Well, it is something I can look at my sisters and say, I did it before you did. So that's the one good side to it. But I mean, it's just kind of a conversation starter, honestly. It doesn't really affect my life in any real way, like other than having to take my medication and like stuff like that. But I mean, it's really just, we're just living and it's just something that happens every once in a while.
Yeah, isn't it funny how that happens? Like somebody outside of, I talk about needles in the eyes, you talk about your incredibly unique condition. It is unique because there is no other. Um, I survived cancer, right?
Mhm.
Um, and you talk to people about it and they have this, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And
Mhm.
you get the standard uh human attempts at trying to salve over the situation. But like with my things with the cancer, and I'm on a pill a day because of it and all this other stuff, the response is just like yours, like, it's something that
Yeah.
happened, and this is my life.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that you actually said like, "Oh my gosh, like I'm so sorry," because like every time I tell somebody that, I'm blind, I went blind, I wasn't born blind, whatever, their first response is always like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I can't believe this happened." And I just look at them and I'm like, "Did you do this? Is this your fault? Did you
Yeah,
do this to me?"
yep, I
And
feel
then
that.
it's
Yeah.
just like, we're gonna need to have a deeper conversation if that's where this is going to. But
That's wow. Yeah, it's I. how fascinating that your situation. Wow. Have you, I mean, this might seem like a silly question, but have you been on talk shows and shit because of this? Because like
Yeah.
there's only one of you in the world.
So after I first went blind, it was kind of my brother, we had a GoFundMe, and so my brother was like, I'm gonna talk to the news channels about getting the GoFundMe out there, like whatever. And so as the moment the first news channel, I think it was KCTV5,
Hmm.
they reached out to me and heard my story and were like, we just want to know a little bit more about you. And the first story that was ever put out about me was a very dramatized and like very like from the emotional aspect, like trying to get viewers because like we want to have you pity this girl so we can get views. And from
Okay.
there, it kind of blew up into like what actually happened? How is she coping? What's going on? And so I've been on Dr. Oz. I've been on pretty much every local news channel. I've been on national news channels. I was interviewed by the Washington Post, by New York Times. I was interviewed by Today Show, um, all that kind of stuff. Daily Mail.
Dang. That's, I mean, just coming from a purely medical perspective, it is incredibly interesting.
Yeah, it's
And
it's fascinating. Like when you look at the science and everything, because there's like
yeah,
there's little details that just make it really weird. Like for instance, when they cut open my eyes initially, they were intending to find fluid, or blood or something that was
sure,
making
sure.
me swell. But when they opened my eyes, there nothing came out. It was just air.
What?
Yeah, I was a human balloon for no reason.
You
I
have
was
life
I
guards.
was the bitch that turned into a blueberry. Okay, that was me.
Oh, Willy Wonka, what was her name? Was it
Oh
not
gosh.
Veruca Salt? Violet Beauregard.
Yes, I was Violet.
You were the Violet Beauregard of, oh my goodness. Wow. Okay. That's wow. I mean, I'm anymore in my life, it's hard for me to be speechless on something, but it's like, wow, it's such an interesting thing. It's like so many questions, but wow, okay. Um, all right. So where do we go from here, Jen?
So so back to comedy.
Okay.
Um,
Good.
so how did you who was your like inspiration as a kid? Like, did you watch any comedians growing up and were like, I want to be like them?
Yeah. Yeah, Bill Cosby. And then we found out things. Um, you want to know what the sad truth is behind my stand up? So here's the deal. My family, like I love my mom and dad, don't get me wrong, and my grandparents, especially my grandma, she was really sweet. But my family constantly fought, and one of the big problems with my family is everybody in it is a freaking genius on some level, and I mean
Mm.
that in the most literal sense. My uncle was a rocket scientist.
Oh,
My grandfather can do trigonometry in his head, that kind of thing. So
I
there
can't even do trigonometry on paper.
me either. My genius and things goes towards the written word, pretty
Mm-hmm.
much. So, but the problem is when you live with people like that, when people are arguing about who's right over something, unfortunately, they genuinely were correct about stuff when they're arguing about it. So that makes it that much more, just, just
Mm-hmm.
the sanctimony was gross. But the one thing that always I noticed that the family would come together on, we would sit down as a group in the living room, and otherwise we were yelling at each other or working. That's the other thing, like worked all the time. But we would take time out and we would sit down and we would watch Gallagher,
Oh.
and Bill Cosby and George Carlin, and everybody would be laughing and everybody would be happy together. And I recognized the power of laughter very early on. It was like, man, this is something that can keep these people because like when we would have like Thanksgiving, they would start out nice and then it would always end with people screaming at each other. A Bible would be open on the table for some reason and people spitting in it and like just insanity. But when comedy was around, everybody was kind to each other and we laughed and we just, there was joy there. And when I saw that, I remember even being very young, looking around at my family going, whatever this thing is, and I didn't even understand it at the time, but I was like, I have to master this because this seemingly defeats every bad thing that's out there. And so, and then I started noticing at school the kids that could get people to laugh because I was also severely bullied growing up too. So I was getting it from the family, then I was getting it at school. And, you know, I would see that the kids that, especially the class clowns, people loved having them around. It's like, okay, so there's power here. And so I worked very diligently to figure out what made people laugh. Um, but it took time, you know, and when I finally got out of school, um, I signed up for an open mic contest at Crackers in Indianapolis and call it divine intervention. Whatever. I was north of Indy and I heard an advertisement for this comedy contest at Crackers when they had the original room in
Hmm.
Indianapolis at the Keystone of the Crossing. And this voice in my like it wasn't even mine. It would just said do this, and I was like, "Oh, all right." So I
Surprise, it
called.
was me.
Always been there. So I signed up, and here's the crazy thing. The room held 375 people and it was packed. Now, I look at a room like that now and I would obliterate a room of 375 people that are there to laugh.
Hmm.
But when I went up, um, I in 5 minutes I got three laughs. And I mean, in the crowd, there were politicians, there were, I think, Colts players and Pacers. Like this was an event. And I got three laughs, and they were like, yeah, like that kind of pity just. And I walked off stage and I was dejected. And I remember thinking, well, maybe this wasn't for me. And then and he's still a friend of mine today, and he runs contests and things. Wait, hold on a second. I'm sorry about this.
Oh, you're all good.
Hey, could you keep them quiet? I'm having a podcast right now. I get that. Thank you. Oh my goodness. I do apologize.
It's okay.
Dating. Ah, it amongst all the show and the business, there's real life kicks in. Anyway, Jerry Goebel, he pulled me aside before I left the showroom and he said, "Don't leave." He said, "I can see where like you're funny, what's funny, you just don't know how to get to it." And so he worked with me and a couple other comics did, Delmar Berkey, Troy Davis, God rest him.
Hmm.
And the second open mic that I went to, I absolutely devastated the place. Like I just took everything they taught me and I poured it into that. And once I got that first real, like people laughing back at me, I can't think of another drug that would hook somebody harder because any comic that has been there and gotten those laughs, it is unlike anything else. And
It's
you're
better
always
than
just,
drugs. It's crazy.
it's yeah, it is. So at that point, I just started going down to Crackers every single 7 nights a week. I would work during the day, go down to Crackers, and I would help, opening doors, sweeping up, cleaning up glasses. I started doing sound more and more, but that was what was really the thing that was a big change because I got to sit up in the sound booth on the second floor and watch comics perform every single night. And because of that education, within a year, I was emceeing at all the clubs, and within 2 years, I was on the road full time, traveling all over the country as an MC or a feature. And back then, when I started, you could do that, and that's just kind of the start of it. And now, like I'm doing stand up, I think every weekend up until March, and then I'm taking because I am the GM of the Underground Laugh Lounge in Niles, Michigan, so I'm taking some weeks off so I can work there. But yeah, I mean that's the story, kind of long and short of it, I think.
Hmm. So have you've how long have you been doing stand-up for? When was that?
Well, if you're trying to make me feel old, I started in 1995,
Okay.
so 28 years coming up. Um, and it's been good. You know, I've met some of my best friends through it. Um, Jerry Goble, Jacoby Ray, Troy Davis, Mike Merck, Terry McNeely, Davin Rosenblatt, just tons of good people, numerous, and I've spread joy all over the country, um, except for the times that I really sucked when I was on stage. But luckily, I've had quite a few more wins than I have losses, especially the last couple of years. So it's been good. And the thing is, if anybody's out there and listening to this and they're on the fence about, oh, I really want to try it, but this excuse, just do it. Just do it. Like we only get one go around in this lifetime, as far as we know. And it here's the thing. And I love this philosophy. If you don't start today, a year from now, you'll still be, you know what I mean, in the same
You'll still be in the
place.
same spot.
Right. But if you start now, like, yeah, you may be still an open micer and stuff, but you'll have started your journey. So why not start? Why not follow that dream?
Hmm.
And who says you have to be great at it? People chase these dreams, and perfectionism myth. Now, yeah, everybody should try to be the best they can at stuff, but 99% of the joy comes through the journey, not the destination, right?
Yeah,
So, yeah,
definitely. So in your let me do quick math. What is that? 30 years? 30 years of work? Have you
almost
ever interacted with a blind comic?
almost.
Almost.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Jeff. Oh my God, I can't remember his last name. Jerry would know. This guy, his eyesight um just incredibly bad, and he had to have his wife drive him everywhere, and his eyes were crossed, and there were just all of this stuff going on. And he was funny enough, but the real tragedy with him, and I always tell people, just don't be afraid of your bumps and bruises, address them, because people see them anyway,
Hmm.
and they're going to make their judgments whether you want them to or not, right? And Jeff, when he would get on stage, he would wear sunglasses sometimes because he was so sensitive about his eyes. And um but when he wouldn't, his eyes were crossed, so people would look at him, and I would hear them in the crowd going, is he doing that on purpose? Is he trying? Because since you're up there being a comic,
Yeah.
they, you know what I mean? Like they're like, oh, he's trying to be funny, but they're sitting there the whole time so focused on his eyes being crossed and whether or not it was, and how the hell is he holding it like this the entire time, that they weren't listening to him, and it destroyed his career. I mean, there were other factors, but that killed him up on stage. And his friends would tell him, like, dude, you have got to just either address it or just become comfortable with it. And,
Hmm.
you know but that's the only time that I had anybody close to, we should say, is blind, uh on stage. Now, I've worked with comics that have no legs, no arms. I've worked with comics with Parkinson's. I've worked with comics that are missing limbs, just kind of all over the spectrum. And I I love it because their perspective on the world is bouncing off of people's perceptions, and where that clash happens is a lot of comedy.
Hmm. Do you think those different perspectives um in a way kind of how do I word this? So, do you think, okay, what is like the one common denominator that is amongst all of like those kinds of comics? Like, so just say disabled comics.
Okay.
Would would it be like their ability to joke about their circumstances?
I I think honestly, I think it is a humility and a strength that they have cultivated over a lifetime of dealing with the bullshit. Okay. Um, Now I know growing up with my eyesight the way it was, and I'm also like very colorblind too, right? And this I actually talk about this on stage. When people find out that I'm colorblind, the first thing that they always do is, they'll grab their shirt and they'll go, "What color is this?"
Yeah, like great. Thanks. You,
Right.
thank you.
Right, exactly. And I say that's the only disability you can do that to. You can't walk up to somebody, tip them out of a wheelchair and go, "Prove it, bitch."
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point.
Right. Yeah. And actually, when I was at the Funny Stop this last Saturday in Ohio, I did that joke, and there was a dude in a wheelchair, and but instead of saying you can't walk up to somebody in a wheelchair, I pointed at him and I said, "You can't walk up to him, tip him out, and go prove it, bitch." And the crowd like laughed because it's funny, but then they stopped and they all turned to look at him, and he's just dying, right, in his wheelchair. He's just laughing his ass off. And I said, I said, I debated when I saw him at first doing that joke tonight. I said, but you know what? I said, fuck it, because he knows what's going on with his life. And I said, I'm not going to try to not include him by keeping him out of the discourse. No, he's in a wheelchair. I have a joke about it. Here it
Exactly.
is. Right.
I like to
And
think that there's like, sorry, continue.
no, no, I was just saying, like, and it was great.
I like to think that there's kind of a line when it comes to comedy, in
Mhm.
regards to like people with disabilities or anything like that. It's there's like the line of like you can joke with them and have fun with them, but the moment that like it turns into like you are incapable because of your disability and I'm gonna make a
Mhm.
joke about that,
Yep.
then it's like, okay, we're not gonna do that. But the vast majority of times, like even when I'm like interacting with other people my age or older people, younger people, doesn't matter who, like they're
Mhm.
always so afraid to like make the little joke, like, ooh, like, oh, like if I say, that was a good movie, it was like I liked it, and they'd go, like, how did you see it? Like something like that. And to me, that's like, that's funny. That's okay. That's super
Right.
cool. But if they were like, you can't understand that, there's no way you could see it, like then it's like, what's the line here?
Right. Well, I actually have, okay, so I teach comedy classes, but I kind of look at them now as more like fuck up avoidance classes for comedy,
Yeah.
teaching people what not to do. And this is one of the big ones. Because I always say, like you can joke about anything, you're just not free of the consequences, right?
Hmm.
And so I did some shows with Def Jam, and I am, white as an Iowa farmer, though, like, I've got a lot of Native American in me. You can't tell. Um, but I always did fine with, they're called urban crowds in the industry. Because it was never attacking. My point of view was like, look, I grew up in Deer Creek, Indiana, in the midst of four cornfields. My family they were misanthropes. We, surrounded by rednecks, white trash. This is what I come from, and I understand that. And I'm coming into your world, a fish out of water, and I recognize that. And I was always fine in those situations because I was never attacking. And when somebody's up there and they're including you in the joke, it's like if I have a friend and I'm like, "What's up, fuckface?" And everybody's laughing about it, right? And then the dude in the wheelchair or the blind lady or whatever is right next to them, and I don't call them fuckface, and they're in my friend circle. It's like, well, why don't you call me fuckface?
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm a fuckface.
Think exactly. Well, yes, you are. No. How horrible is it that you don't want to include them in that like good friends pick on each other like that. That's how I came up. And
Hmm.
how dastardly almost to be like, well, I can't call you a fuckface. You're in a wheelchair. What are you talking about?
Like that's just at that point that's discrimination.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Like no, sir, I am equally as awful as everybody here. Make fun of me.
Yeah. Thank you. And but that's when it becomes a moment in time. And you want to talk about inclusiveness, that's inclusive. Holding somebody up on a pedestal like they need to be protected and everything. This is why I said the thing about, you asked the common thread, the through line of all the folks. There was a comic, his name was Brian. Oh my God, I can't remember his last name, but he was missing his arm. I think it was his left arm from the elbow down, right?
Mhm.
And he had so many funny jokes about it, right? So many funny jokes. And the thing I loved about him, and again, all the other comics with these disabilities, if we're going to throw a name on it, again, just there was a strength that every single one of them had, because they've had to suffer the slings and arrows that come from, the mass, population that's out there that fears things that they don't understand,
Mhm.
right? And and I find that to be true. They're just more awake, you know.
I agree.
And kids that have suffered abuse during their childhoods are more awake because they have felt all the pain that sheltered kids who, have the, mom and dad and the white picket fence and the 2.5, you know what I mean? Like the Ozzie and Harriet thing going on, they are lost when they start to become adults. I have seen it. I
Hmm.
watched that shit happen when being bullied and everything like I was in high school. When I went to Purdue, which a bunch of the kids that I went to school with did, man, oh my God, I was fine being alone. Born with the shitty eyes and we were super poor too. Like I had all these just check marks against me, right?
Hmm.
Um, so when I went to Purdue, my first day there, I'm plopped down in the middle of 40,000 people and I'm just skipping through the campus because I'm fine being alone. I am okay. This environment doesn't scare me. Now, I don't like talking to people, but I'm good with myself. And kids from my school who never had to go through the stuff that I did were come running up and they're like, "Oh my God, it's so good to see you." It's like, bro, you never talked to me in school.
Yeah, that's
You're
a good
just,
point.
yeah, it's like you're just afraid right now. And I just wanted to tell them, I don't know that they would have understood at the time, just like, you need to live in this for a bit so you can grow, right? I'm not going to be cruel to you and shove you off, but at the same time, it's like, if you're trying to cleave to the one thing that has familiarity here, you are doing a disservice to yourself. Like, be part of this like swelling mass of humanity and grow with it so you can become, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Sorry, getting a little existential there.
We need that. That's okay. Um, so circling back to like stand up and comedy and that whole area,
Yes.
you said you've bombed shows before.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Have you ever had like an audience member just like challenge you almost, like be like I don't think this guy is funny. I'm gonna make sure that this show fails, like something like that.
Yes, and I have got an awesome story.
Oh,
Holy shit.
feed me.
Oh, I happily will. All right. So, I was doing the Gaslight Inn down in Indianapolis, Indiana, and it was this crazy, it's one of those like storied open mics that, kind of gets this legendary air about it in the industry because so much stuff has happened there and people just, like big names have come through because they hear about this place. So it was one of those places that was just becoming, and it would pack out every time we'd have an open mic. Well, this one night I'm up on stage and there was a woman stage right who just would not shut up throughout any of the comics. And she just kept hammering people and hammering people, and then we would say stuff to her. She just wouldn't be quiet. So I get up there and I just abandon my set and I just start laying into her with every like heckler line, everything I knew, talking about her, her many suitors, just everything. And she had on her left hand side was her husband, on the right hand side was her son, and then her daughter-in-law was next to the husband. And the husband was just kind of chuckling. And I learned afterwards that the reason he really enjoyed what I did, because in his own words, no one has ever talked to her like that. Okay, so this woman, I guess, has been a lifelong problem for many. So I start tearing into her and tearing into her, and she just won't. And then and this has only happened to me a few times on stage. I blacked out and I woke up, like came back to consciousness about 10 minutes later, and I'm just like yelling in the mic and yelling, like pointing at her. The son has, and I don't remember what I said, but the crowd was just fucking dying laughing, right? The son, and this is where the contentious part comes up, gets up and walks around the back of the room because it was like seating on two sides and then
Mhm.
now that went up stage. He's walking up towards me. And I think that's why I came back online, because threat, right? And so he's
Danger
coming,
alert.
yeah, yeah. So he's coming at me, and I see it, and I grab the stand and I pick it up like a sledgehammer because it has that heavy base, right?
Yeah.
I'm sitting there holding, I'm like, motherfucker, you come one more step. Like I'm saying this with a microphone and I'm holding the stand like this. She's screaming at me. But what I don't see in the background, Jerry Goebel, Troy Davis, and Ian Montgomery, three of my very good friends. Now,
Uh-huh.
Ian is ex-special forces and he's a comic and a magician. Brilliant dude. Troy is a brick mason and he was like 6'5", massive. And Jerry is a big dude with a lot of anger issues. So,
Me.
right. So I guess what had happened was as he was walking towards the stage, the three of them were shoulder to shoulder walking towards him. That dude wouldn't have even made it close to me because they were going to slaughter this dude. But when I picked up the mic stand and I was like, motherfucker, he backed off, walks back around. They all start to get up. And as they're walking out the door, this white trash princess screams at me. She goes, suck my dick. And I looked over at her and I go, I knew it. And of course, the place just lays down, like just because of all the stuff that had happened. So yeah, that was like a time where, there would have been some big time rumbling then. Yeah.
You almost died for comedy.
Yeah. I mean, well, me or him, but I think with my friends in the back, he didn't have a good chance, at all. So silly too over jokes and stuff. There's
Hmm.
people have to be like that. I just don't understand it.
Yeah. So like, so what is the science behind a good joke? What is like, is there an equation to it?
Well, there's formulaic builds on all jokes. There's setup punch, setup body punch. There's story jokes where it's like setup punchline way at the other end, and the pepper jokes, all the way as it builds with a crescendo on an upward slant. There's so much to it. But here's the thing. The shit that I find funny that I am able to articulate on stage in a manner that makes people laugh, that is a formula that is personal to me. Like I'm able to take the way that I view things and make it funny. But there are things that are always funny. There's the switcheroo, you do the 360 at the end that they're not expecting, or the shock, or the absurdist thing,
Mhm.
is why the chicken would cross the road because it was stuck up a cow's ass when like you see what I mean? It's like but there's also like simple humor. It's like dad jokes that they're so popular and I love them. I wrote one the other day that is so stupid, but I've been doing it on stage to torture my audiences, which is I started worshiping grocery bags because I am sacrilegious.
Some sacrilege.
Yes, it's terrible. right. But see, the thing is, it's like it's a pun and it's a word pun, but but the one thing that makes jokes powerful is when people utilize their communication skills to illustrate something in the human mind, the better that you can paint the picture in the person's mind, the heavier the laugh. Okay.
Hmm.
And, in revenge comedy too, stuff where you're the beleaguered person and then you get the revenge on the Karen or the Kyle or whatever, that gets laughs because we all experience in our daily life just taking L's left and right. And we love to see people win, right? Until it gets to be too much and then we get jealous of them. Humans are fucked up.
Yeah, I can attest to that.
Yeah.
Um, so you do a lot. You're also a professor,
Yes.
um, at two universities, Mr.
Yes.
Distinguished.
Right.
Um, and you're also becoming a doctor, and you're also a comedian. You're also running a comedy club. You're doing all these things. How do you juggle that? Like all of it? Like, is there a strategy to it? Do you have a journal? Do you have a planner? Do you have like mental yoga that you do every morning to emotionally prepare yourself? What do you do?
Well, my mental yoga in the morning is like, fuck, okay, I guess we're
Oh, I'm awake again.
yeah. All right, here we go. Here's the thing. I've always said, because I've been asked this question many times, and as a matter of fact, my very first week of my psychology 8002, that's the level, that's so weird. It's like I teach 101
8,000?
classes, 8000 to 8002. That's when you get to the doctoral level. That's when they start just numbering stuff like just ridiculously high,
Yeah.
um, but they talked about time management skills. And I put in the paper the same thing I tell people, making time is a superpower. Now, I know that seems like a cop out but I'll explain. There are 24 hours in a day, and I sleep 6 to 8 like everybody else, sometimes less, but for the most part, 6 to 8, right?
Mm,
And it comes down to compartmentalizing the things that I have to do. It's just like today, I worked on comedy club stuff. I worked on my own comedy stuff. I worked on my SNHU, my LMC. I graded papers. I answered emails. And the thing is, I just take a section of time and say, okay, I'm going to focus on this for an hour. I'm not going to let stuff get in the way. This is all I'm doing right now. Now, if I get an important phone call, of course, I'll take it. But outside of that, this hour is dedicated to this. And then, so I don't get burned out, I will switch to something else in that next hour. And what that does for me is one, it keeps things fresh in my mind so I can, keep doing the things. But you would be shocked the amount of shit you can get done if you're just like, I'm going to focus my energy into this thing for 1 hour. And then if you get, later in the day when you've done a bunch of stuff, you're like, you know what? I could do another hour doing this thing. Whatever it is, working out, a hobby, it doesn't matter, but I never let it take up too much of my time. It's just like chores around the house. I heard a very good rule a long time ago, do it for 20 minutes, sit down. And an hour, do another 20 minutes, go hard at it for 20 minutes. You will be shocked at the amount of shit you can get done by having that, right? Sort of pattern to things. So I mean, that's what I do, and I keep, it's much lighter this semester. Like I said, last semester I was teaching like 9 classes and all this other stuff. I was able to do it barely, but I did it.
hmm.
So that's the secret.
The secret is learning how to time manage. I
Yeah.
like it. Um, I think I have one final question for you, I believe.
Okay.
Um,
You ask me anything. If I, I'll answer whatever.
how many times in your life has someone called you Sean Shank Redemption?
Oh, fuck me. Okay. No, no, look, first of all right, the Shawshank Redemption, in my opinion, is the greatest piece of cinematic work that has ever been created. Stephen King cut it loose to Frank Darabont, I think, for just like $1,000. It was something crazy.
Hmm.
And Frank created this screenplay that was just amazing. It was based off a short story by Stephen King, which is called Rita Hayworth in the Shawshank Redemption. It is a tale of hope, victory, perseverance. I mean, just all of the good stuff. All right. And the soundtrack is Sublime by Thomas Newman. If you don't know
I
who,
agree.
oh my God, that dude. Um, but when that movie came out, it was hell because after every single show, and I'm not exaggerating, every single show, didn't matter where I was at in the country, I would have some redneck come up to me. And again, remember, rednecks are my people, would come up to me and go be, hey, I got a joke for you. You can call yourself Sean Shank Redemption. Do, 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 do. And yeah, it was, it was. So I finally, for the longest time, because they just are being nice and trying to help, I'd be like, oh my God, I've never heard that before. That's thank you so much. And they would feel so good walking away. Well, it just got to the point where it was so much where I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna put a stop to all this. So I open up my set with a couple quick hits to get the audience with me, and then I say, so my name is Sean Shank, and then I pause and I go, Sean Shank Redemption, get it out of your system. It gets a decent like little laugh, and but I always tell them, I said, I am just saving us a shitload of time after the show.
Yeah.
And it's so true because it wouldn't be just one dude. It
No,
would be
it would be me and all of my friends, and
yeah,
then some.
yeah, because you would see the pun right away. And it's a fair pun, don't get me wrong. But I just, it's like, God, you can only hear something so many times. It's just like a tall person, like, hey, what's the weather like up there? It's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, shut up. So yeah, so that I've heard it a lot, but thankfully I adore that movie. I adore the soundtrack. I am intending to go out to Mansfield, Ohio to see where it was shot at the Ohio State
Ooh,
Reformatory at some
it's
point.
haunted.
Bro, you ain't scared of me. I used to ghost hunt. Are you kidding
You
me?
see ghost hunt?
Hell yeah.
All right, wait. You used to like professionally?
I worked with a team. It was called Haunted Realty. We actually were putting together a pilot that we were going into these places, and I can say this now because, if somebody picked up on this and did this show, fine, I would just sue them in the after. But the idea was people trying to sell homes that were haunted, and we would go in, figure out what was going on, and try to help them cleanse the home so they could sell it, right? So that's where Haunted Realty came. And what we
Haunted
did was we
realty.
mixed a group of comedians, the comedy that I work with them now, the Comedy Deli, which is, my very dear friends, Brad Miller, Otis Boggs, Patrick Gaughan, and so many others, and Mike Barnett, who has since passed, God rest him. And so it was like you mix comedians, and then we brought in this professional, like dyed in the wool, real deal ghost hunting team and our medium who Tina Marie Ronan, and she, holy shit, that I'm getting goosebumps because of some of the stuff that she and I went through. There was one house, we called it the Mishawaka Demon House.
Okay.
I was standing in the living room, and off to my left it was like I don't know what you would call it. It's not like a living room, it's like a sitting room, I guess.
Hmm.
And at the back side of the sitting room was the door that went upstairs. And I was standing there, and Jay, I shit you not. I know what I saw. Okay. I saw this black mass, like a person standing on the stairs and leaning out of the door looking at you. But instead of a dude, it was that shape, but a black mass. And I'm sitting there looking at it, and I'm just getting chills going, holy shit, this thing is looking at me. Like I felt it. Okay. And I am not kidding you, Tina. I know, like, how feel somebody behind you, right?
Hmm.
I felt somebody behind me. I look over my shoulder, and Tina's standing right there. And before I could say anything, you know what she says to me? She goes, I see him too. Fuck yeah, dude. Not only that, that same house. Okay, so Patrick Gaughan is at the bottom of the stairs. All right.
Uh-huh.
And Eric Hardy, who is one of the professionals at this, very good at the ghost hunting, right? These guys have been all over the country and stuff. I'm in the middle of the stairs. We're going down to the basement. And we even separated the audio so we know that it was a different voice coming in. It was a completely different line. And I have this still on recorder buried somewhere in my dresser. Pat says something, Eric says something in response, and then this voice, as clear as day, into my recorder said, "Check me out."
Oh,
Yeah, it was a Class A EVP. I mean, no joke. We have done the State Theater in Logansport, Indiana. We did the administration building for the South Bend Civic Theater. We've just done all kinds of places. But again, that's one of those things. I had a fascination. I've got this really good group of dudes and gals around me that, we just do things like this together. And yeah, I mean, it was a great and very scary at times experience.
you're literally like my dream. Like ghost hunting, comedian, creative writing. Come at me. This is like that's like my persona. That is my persona.
Oh,
God
are
damn.
you a furry?
I'm not.
Okay, all right. Because before this conversation went any further, because I have a cousin that's a furry. Yeah, and his wife.
Really?
Oh, really? Yeah, I've got an interesting clan, my family. Really interesting. But anyway, yeah. So, but you know what the thing is? Like you, I wonder what it would be like, because let me ask you this question, if you don't mind, with the senses and stuff, because like when because I couldn't see shit, everything was just glob, right? My hearing has always been excellent. Okay. Like excellent, excellent. Have you, because of what's going on with your situation, have you kind of like turned daredevil with like your ears are just like fucking amazing?
So my I guess I just kind of rely on my hearing a lot more.
Hmm.
I wouldn't say it's gotten any better. I think I just pay attention to it more.
Ah, okay.
Um, but I mean, I wish I was Daredevil. That's who I always wanted to be. I wanted to be Daredevil, and then I went blind. And I was like, this is my chance.
I was gonna say the universe is like, here you go. Push-ups.
And but I have noticed. So I all my life I've been able to kind of communicate with ghosts or spirits or whatever you want to call them, angels,
Okay.
whatever. And um when I was young, when I was really little, I was really good at it. And as I've gotten older, it's kind of drifted away from me. But after I went blind, I thought I was going crazy because I was starting to hear voices and like feeling things around me, feeling things touch me, all that kind of stuff. And my mom's cousin is a psychic medium. She talks to like angels and like guardian angels, like all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And it sounds silly, but this is like actually what I believe in. So it's like but I
Speak your
had a
truth, yo.
conversation with her and I was like, am I going crazy or is there something happening? And she was like, well, it could be because, you've lost your sight that they're able to contact you easier through like auditory. And she told me recently like the veil is going to start lifting and it's going to get more apparent and it sure has been.
Hmm. Oh, with everything going on around the world and the Great Awakening and all that shit. Oh,
Oh
fuck it.
yeah. Yeah.
I think you would be baller on a ghost hunt because I just, with your senses and things, and you're even saying it now, I would just bet you would go into a place and just, I would love
I
to.
can tell. It literally is my sixth sense. Like I can tell immediately. Like it's not like I walk into a room and I'm like, a man named George is standing over there. He has a toupee and he's racist. I don't. That's not how it works.
Wow, that is really good.
It's more like,
What
for
the
instance,
hell? Big Ghost is like, whites only. What? George, no.
it's like, for instance, I was in Florida with my family a couple months ago,
Mhm.
and we walked into there was a museum. It was like a military museum, and it was basically donations from a bunch of like world from the Civil War up,
Sure.
like all of
Sure.
those wars, and
Oh, wow.
there were
Okay.
uniforms and flags and
Yep.
weapons and everything. And I walked in there, and without even taking 3 steps, I felt heavy. I was like, there are so many people in here right now. I literally can't even focus.
All right.
And I remembered walking with my sister, and we walked by a uniform, and I stopped in front of it and I said, "There's someone attached to this. This should not be in here." And
All
she
right.
was like, "Girl, you're creeping me out. I need you to stop."
So you felt stuff and they were freaking you out.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Now, when you hear the whispers and things, is it just like a kind of thing, or do you hear kind of more distinct language? I mean, how does it come across to you?
So it really kind of it's less like I can understand the sentence that's being said. It's like it almost sounds like it's happening underwater at like twice the speed.
Oh, okay.
So it's um like for instance, I was sitting on my couch watching a movie, and from literally right in front of my face, like I heard probably like a 2 second sentence, and it scared me so bad because like I couldn't even like I literally thought I was going crazy.
Hmm.
And but it wasn't like I could understand what they were saying, but it was like I could feel the energy, and I could like hear the mumbles. Like it's almost like the veil is like half lifted and we're like almost there.
All right. That's interesting. It's, and that's the thing too that gets me with people that are skeptics. Actually, I will tell you, when we were getting into the ghost, and when this was actually at the demon house too, uh, our friend Mike, the guy I said Mike Barnett before, he didn't believe in any of it at all, but he was our good friend, so he did it with us anyway, right? And when it came to us being on camera and having those moments or whatever, he would say, I don't believe in any of this. I've seen some weird stuff. And when we were at the demon house, we were downstairs, the lights were off, and this is one of those Midwest houses where you have the basement underground and a couple of thin windows
Mm-hmm.
to let light in at ground level, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm standing down there with Mike, and there's some moonlight bleeding in through the window, and I felt energy, okay, near me. And it was like a lot of energy. And Mike was standing across from me by one of the support posts of the basement. So it's probably like 3, 4 feet in between us. And this black mass, I mean, massive. Its head, whatever you want to call it, was almost touching the floor, like
Oh,
above us, right? And it moves in between us, and it blots out the light from that window. That's how dark it was. And as I'm watching it go away, Mike's attention goes elsewhere. And he looks at me and he goes, "Did you see both those things?" I said, "No, I was too enthralled with this big, massive, black moving thing." He said, "I saw that." And he said, then a green orb started floating around the basement. And I go, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, I saw both of them. I can't
oh,
believe it."
oh, I love that moment when a skeptic turns into a believer. It's like
I
Christmas.
know, right? Exactly. And he was completely changed from that point, his perception of things. And he was just like, man, okay. And so his whole world opened up to this whole new, thing. It's just like, it, Einstein said you can't destroy energy, it can just transfer it like into some other shape. It can't, move, dissipate, but it can't be destroyed, right? So if it can't be destroyed and people die, it's like, what happens to that energy? So if you can be a skeptic and all this stuff all day long, but if you're talking about the pure science of it, you have to admit that that energy has to go
It
somewhere.
has to go somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, if you believe in the, I think it's the stone tape theory, I think that's what it's called, where it's um, the energy, because it doesn't die, it doesn't go away, it doesn't get destroyed, bleeds into the walls and gets connected into things like wood and stone. And
Hmm.
because of that, it kind of lives forever. So when you walk into a room or an old building or something like that, like you'll be able to feel the energy and the history from the walls.
Yes, 100%. Okay, so let me ask you this, and I'll tell like a quick little story, and then tell me if you felt something like this. So when I think I was like 10 or 11, and my sister was 13, we were thinking about moving. Well, my parents were thinking about moving. They just would have brought us along. And we were looking at houses, and we went to this house, beautiful old house, amazing rich woodwork, just low price too. And Michelle and I walked up this massive, great, wooden stairs to the second floor. And I mean, it's just so grandiose, And I remember thinking it was beautiful, but as soon as we stood at the top of the stairs, there was this big hallway, and we were standing there together, and I felt just hatred, just anger, evil, hate, just every negative emotion that you could possibly feel. And I looked at Michelle, and I knew she felt it too. And we went running back down the stairs, and we told mom and dad, there's like, no, there's something bad here, like really bad. And we never went back to that house. Didn't even consider it. Now, have you ever had anything like that happen to you?
Dozens of times.
Yeah.
I am very my family will tell you that I'm the one person, like, if and whenever my sisters move into a new apartment, anything, I'm the first one there so I can tell them like if there's something happening. And the one of the biggest examples of this I think I can think of is similar to you, we were looking for houses. Like we weren't I don't think we were actually even thinking about moving, but I think we were just like, let's go look at houses, that would be fun. And we walk into this house. It's me, my mom, and my sister, I believe. And it's a beautiful house. Like you walk in, and if you go to the left, it's like the laundry room, and if you go further, it's the master bathroom, master
Mhm.
bedroom.
Mhm.
Beautiful house. And I walk in and I'm like it feels, I don't know any other way to describe it other than it feels like the windows were blocked out. Like it felt like almost dark in there.
Oh, wow.
And I could not see it this time, so I had no, it just, when I walked in there I was like, why is it so dark in here? um Even though like it's just black, but I
I'm
we walk
sorry, but God dang it.
we walked into the bathroom, and we all like kind of like are joking around, and so me, my mom, and my sister all climb into the shower because that's how big it was, is all of us could fit in there.
Oh,
And we
wow.
got in there and I almost literally started having a panic attack. And so we go throughout the rest of the house and whatever, and we walk out, and my mom's like, "So what'd you guys think?" And I said, "We can never go back in that house again." And she's like, "Why?" And I was like, "I don't know what happened in there. I don't know who is in there. I don't know what lives in there now, but it did not like us. It did not like me specifically, and we need to leave as soon as possible." And for weeks after we went to that house, we were having things happen in our own house. Like the
Oh,
doors would shut, we would have cabinets open, we'd have hear footsteps, and I was like, "That's the thing from that house. I swear to
yeah.
God." And we had to
Yep.
cleanse the house. We had to do all the stuff.
Yep. I, yeah, 100%. That's whenever we would do any ghost hunts, we would cleanse before, after, like
Mm-hmm.
just the whole, because yeah, I've heard too many times people will go and do it, the ghost hunt, and they don't do any of that stuff to protect themselves. And then the same thing, like you said,
It just
you go
latches
home.
onto you.
Oh my God, yeah. Holy cow, that is oof.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Well, how very interesting. You're a step ahead of me. I'm just doing the ghost hunting and feel like weird energy fluctuations and stuff. You actually like, like I said, you kind of got that daredevil thing going on a little bit, but a little bit more psychic too. So you're kind of like daredevil, a little bit, I don't know, Dr. X, a little bit.
oh, yeah. It's the hair, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Um, so my final thing for this interview is I think it is very important for me to share with you my favorite joke of all time. I think it's only fitting.
Fire away.
All right. Now I will say this, this is not, I did not come up with this. I saw this on TikTok like 5 years ago. Um, and it is my favorite thing in the world. Are you ready?
I absolutely.
So there's this fucking snail. So the snail is working with this scientist, right? And the scientist's goal is he wants to make the snail be able to communicate with humans. So the snail works with the scientist and they do studies, they do tests, and they train for years until one day the snail is finally able to speak. And as one day the snail is watching some media, because that's the way that the scientist introduced him to the world, was showing him TV shows and movies and stuff. One day the snail is watching NASCAR and it says to the scientist, I want to be a NASCAR driver. So the scientist says, improbable, but not impossible. And so they start their training. Years go by, and him and the snail are working every single day until one day he is ready for the Daytona. So the thing about the Daytona is you need a number on your car, but the snail was too small to fit any sort of double digit number on his car, and all the single digits were taken. So instead of doing a number, they just drew a nice little S on his shell. S for snail.
Mhm.
So the race starts. The cars are going. The crowd is cheering. The box is going crazy, watching these cars go around the track over and over and over again. It's the third lap, second lap till the finish line. Final lap till the finish line. The snail is in first place, and the box up top with all the announcers says, "Look at that snail go! Look at that S car go!"
Okay. So I have okay. Full disclosure, I've heard that joke before, but it still doesn't take away the joy. Okay.
Yeah,
You want to hear? Do you want to hear a quick snail joke?
give it to me. I would love to.
Okay. So, the snail goes up to this. He's selling magazines door to door, and he goes up and knocks on the door of this home. Guy opens the door, doesn't see anybody, looks down, sees the snail, and the snail says, "Excuse me, sir, would you like to buy some magazines?" The guy is like, "What the fuck?" He picks the snail up, throws it all the way to the other side of the yard, shuts the door. 7 years later, guy hears a knock at the door. Same guy opens up the door, looks down, the snail looks up at him. He's like, "What the fuck, dude?"
That's funny. That's cute. I like that.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I liked your S card because I haven't heard that version, which I that's why I never say, "Oh, I've heard this before," because people like put different swings on jokes, even if you heard them before. So that's why I love it. It's great.
Yeah, my favorite jokes are the ones that take like 6 years to tell, and then the end is like just kind of disappointing, and you're just like, really?
Yeah, yeah. And but again, that's almost like getting into that a little bit of non sequitur punny kind of realm, and that gets some people, and I think that's cool.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So, Sean, do you have any social media or anything you would like to plug for the show?
Yeah, you can hit me up on Insta at Sean.Shank11. You could also, I have a podcast on the JG's Lounge Network, which is Sean Shank Redemption Podcast. Website is Shankwright, that's ShankKWRIGHT.com. And I travel over the country doing stand-up, so you can find me places off the top of my head, I'm trying to think. I'll be at the Comedy Caravan in Louisville, first week of February, doing a bunch of gigs with AC Jokes on the East Coast, the end of February. August, I'll be at the Give a Hoot Comedy Club in Maryland. I don't know. I'm all over the place.
All right. Well, super cool. It has been fantastic meeting you. This
Yeah,
has
thank you.
been Blind Dates with Miss J. Walker and Mr. Sean Shank. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, please email us at blinddatesjw@gmail.com, and I will be sure to at least look at it. All right, Sean. Thank you so much for joining me. It has been so
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, it's cool. I really enjoyed this.
Well, I hope you have a fantastic day.
Yeah, you too. I'll talk to you sometime soon, hopefully.
Hopefully. Yeah. Bye.
Thanks, Jake. Bye.